Continuing on our look at security matters this morning, we're not being joined by retired Group Captain Felix Iheanachor. He's a counter-terrorism expert, also an airline captain. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning and thank you very much indeed.
We've seen that a whole lot is happening, especially in and around. Just recently, there was this talk about a Boko Haram suspect being arrested at the airport. He was trying to board an aircraft, maybe coming to some southwest state. But if you look at what has happened in Paris and what we have just discussed with Captain Adoba, what would you be saying holistically in terms of security in Nigeria? What do you think we're doing correctly at the moment? Let's start with that.
Well, it's important to say that Nigeria has finally come to recognize that terrorism is here. I will recall as far back as 2010, Nigerians were still believing that it is out there and not in Nigeria. Why do I say that? If you look back to the former president, that's President Goodluck Jonathan, his first official visit to the United States, Christian Amanpour was the interviewer and asked him, what are you doing about terrorism in Nigeria? His answer was blunt, that we don't have that as a problem in Nigeria. That was early 2010. I was out somewhere in France, and as an expert, and who had been collaborating with global partners to shape, reform the security situation globally, and also being involved in counter-terrorism initiative in the Trans-Sahara and Maghreb region. I was really disturbed. And I had to come into the country because why I say I was greatly disturbed was as far back as 2005, I have been sensitizing the political class on the fact that terrorism is an imminent threat to Nigeria, and that Al-Qaeda has made a pronouncement to the effect that Nigeria is a country ripe for revolution. And that pronouncement was made in 2004. And so by 2005, we didn't even have a legal framework criminalizing terrorism. I also noticed that this is very important, and then I began the sensitization, working closely with the National Committee on National Security and Intelligence, the chairman of the Senate Committee on National Security and Intelligence, making them realize that we need to have a legal framework, and we now crafted the draft bill on terrorism, so that, to start with, we should understand that terrorism is a crime. And most importantly, Nigeria has been a signatory to the 1999 United Nations Convention, which joined other global communities to say that terrorism is a crime, irrespective of where it happens on the face of the earth. And so if we sign those accords, we are expected to domicile them. We are expected to give them practical expression by coming in country to see that we do all those things that we have joined our global partners to say, look, we are going to work together on the global war on terror. Well, normal, we call it GWOT, Global War on Terror. And then again, Nigeria has been a signatory to the African Plan of Action in 2004, and so many other protocols where we are supposed to work with international communities, both bilateral and multilaterally, regionally and sub-regionally, so that at the end of the day, we'll be able to have laws, the framework on which whatever we are doing, we focus on.
Captain Iheanachor, if I may come in here,
please,
you've given a timeline from the declaration to 2005 when you began to sensitize Nigerians, to 2010 when the interview happened with the former president, to 2014 or thereabout when the law, or 13 when the law was eventually signed, the anti-terrorism law, if it's...
No, it was signed in 2010 eventually, after the Eagle Square bombing on October 1, National Day, and the bomb went off. And so that was when our lawmakers knew that something has to be done.
But the situation now, between that time, 2004, 2005, 2010, 2013, 2014, we're in 2015. Are we on course with our actions and our plans? Vis-a-vis, the last guest talked about the fact that the government is too distant. He talked about the borders and the distance in the relationship between the government and the border communities. Are we on course?
Yes, I will say we are on course. The only thing is that we are practically playing catch-up for now. And I just hope with the current administration, we are going to eventually catch up and stay ahead of the game. Because the idea is to be predictive and to be preemptive. That's where we need to be. But right now, we are catching up. And it's like the terrorists dictating the pace of the game, and we are reacting and responding to whatever they are doing. Rather, we should be predicting what they are likely to do and degrading and preventing such things happening.
Let me comment
That's
there.
exactly where we need to be. But the current administration, I see a whole lot of wisdom and strategy in what Mr. President is doing so far. Why do I say so? If you look at, a whole lot of people will be wondering, how come Mr. President, after appointing the service chiefs, decided to appoint the Chief of Defense Intelligence? Usually, the Defense Intelligence Agency, their task is to provide needed intelligence to the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, including the Ministry of Defense.
All those four?
Yes. And they also have, they are present in all our embassies abroad. Right now, I think we should have about 24 defense attaches, outside the country. And also, of course, they have in-country operation. So the idea is for them to gather intelligence in countries where Nigeria has, though yes, we do have interest all over the world, but then there are places where we have more interest than the others, where Nigeria's interests are more pronounced. So we cannot afford to be everywhere. Some of them cover more than one country. Okay, so now for Mr. President to particularly show interest in that office, to me is very key and very strategic. And if you recall, the moment he took over, he also decided that the service chief should deploy to the theater of the immediate threat areas in the Northeast, rather than sit down in Abuja. This is also another strategic move. Now, I see a whole lot of light in the tunnel if we continue to keep the momentum of these moves made by Mr. President himself. Again, it is also very instructive to note that the choice of the person, the pedigree of the person of the Chief of Defense Intelligence is also something I have been trying to look at, and I see that, yes, there is a whole lot of wisdom in it. Now, the current, we are in a computer and electronic age, and the person there now is an electronic warfare specialist and a fighter pilot. Of course, you see how drones are being used in Afghanistan and, in some of the areas where we are hunting down terrorists, where you don't have boots on the ground. Now, it is very important that we have a right peg, the round peg in a round hole. So the pedigree of the individual who Mr. President has chosen for that office, to me, is very important, very strategic, and a good move. So that's why I said we are in the right direction. And he has also seen the importance of intelligence in the war against terror. So intelligence is key.